Building community, serving community, growing collaborative relationships to strengthen communities. These are hallmarks of my service and hallmarks of what civic stewardship is all about. Hi, this is Councilmember Curran Price, representing the 9th Council District in the city of Los Angeles. I'm delighted to launch this exciting series of Civitas LA Conversations that feature a number of rising stars in our community, men and women who are truly stepping up and making a difference. Whether addressing issues of sustainability and transit equity, workforce development and training, working to create affordable and homeless housing opportunities, nurturing young minds in science, math, and technology, or fostering small business development. These trailblazers are doing the necessary work to move South LA forward. Thanks to Dwayne Gathers and the Civitas team for their efforts to highlight these South LA champions, foster conversations, and facilitate connections that can strengthen our region and create a better tomorrow for all. It's my deep desire to keep the conversation going. As chair of the Economic Development Committee, vice chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, and member of the Ad Hoc Committee on COVID-19 Recovery and Neighborhood Investment, I want to hear from you. You can connect with me via email at councilmember.price@lacity.org or speak with someone from my team by calling 323-846-2651.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers, and welcome to Civitas LA, where we feature diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. We are really excited to launch this 4-part series on South Los Angeles, where we feature 4 very dynamic leaders who are driving the region forward. And for that, we're really thankful to Los Angeles City Council member Curran Price for his kind introduction of this series and for his support of our program. We're also pleased to have the support of One Nation's Legacy LLC, an investment firm investing in communities, and the support of Mr. Darrell Nation in particular for their generous sponsorship of this series. Embracing a bold vision to radically improve the future of LA communities by increasing educational equity and ultimately closing the opportunity gap, the LA Promise Fund is a nonprofit organization with a mission to prepare students for success in college, career, and in life. With us today, we're deeply honored to have Veronica Melvin, President and CEO of the LA Promise Fund with us. Veronica, welcome to Civitas LA.
Thank you, Dwayne. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Well, we're glad to have you here with us. Let's start with a few warm-up questions, shall we? How long have you been with LA Promise Fund as President and CEO?
I have had the honor of being the president and CEO of the LA Promise Fund since 2011, so about to hit my decade mark. And it's been a changing landscape every single day, especially now.
Sure. Congratulations on hitting the decade mark, because certainly, leadership for that long a time in the nonprofit world is rare in some cases. But you've had a long history in education and workforce training prior to LA Promise Fund. Can you share more about your background?
Sure. And I appreciate your comment about hitting that decade mark. And I think you're right. I think it's a sign of the times that oftentimes leadership changes fairly quickly nowadays. It's, no one's working 30 years for the same company. But I do have a personal commitment that I think is also a leadership necessity to stay at a job a little bit longer than the 3 years, which is that usual turnover that we're seeing. But with nonprofits in particular, I think most of your listeners know that we receive our fundings from mostly donations or government grants, either donations from individuals, foundations, or corporations. And really, people invest in leadership. And so when we turn over, that hurts the nonprofit entity that is there for the long haul, which hurts the community that we serve. So I tell my peers when I get a chance and we're in circles, you gotta stick it out for 5 years. You gotta stick it out for 5. But I think the longer we can stay with our respective agencies and evolve from within to something exciting and new that we don't have to hop around, the better we do. But I have deviated off of your
No, that's great. No, that's great.
But it is part of my career path. So my career path, I think, is guided by 2 philosophies. One is #blessed. The other one is #hard work. So hard work is just something that was infused in me and my siblings from the earliest of days. I'm a Latina, Scottish, and Cherokee, and my mother was an immigrant from Mexico and brought that immigrant mentality into our household. So we worked hard every single day, no matter what it was. She told us, you got to work hard in school and you got to work hard outside of school and whatever job you're going to do to make certain you have enough money to earn to earn a living for your family. She also pressed education, right? Like so many of the immigrants that come to this world, like so many of our Black and brown parents do, because we know that is how we break the cycle of poverty. And so I was pretty good at school. I knew how to work hard. So I got to go to Berkeley, which is not too shabby of a university here in California. And I'll say that, and that's where the hashtag blessed comes in, because I just always ran into a mentor in life that took care of my next step for me, because I didn't have someone from my own home guiding my career path. And so I think originally it was an upper graduate student who saw herself in me and said, Veronica, look at your grades. Look at what you're good at. You're good at poli-sci and you're good at economics. There's this major here called political economies. Go with what you're good at, right? Because I came in as engineering, and I was the story of the girl who did not do so good in my math and science classes at Cal Berkeley. I did it in high school, but not. It's a whole nother level at Cal Berkeley. And so was able to benefit from her guiding me. She's still a good friend and continues to push me. And so she was my pathway to finding a major that suited my interests and my strengths, as well as a graduate school, which I ultimately went to UCLA for public policy.
Okay.
And at UCLA, the public policy school, the Luskin School, was good enough to know that we all needed career mentors. So they partnered us with some professionals in the field as well as professors. And my two mentors, Anne Marie Tallman and Fernando Torres Hill, said, our job is to get you a job as I approached that graduation day. And they did. And they got me a job in the nonprofit sector, working under Antonia Hernandez, who was leading MALDIF at the time. And now she's the president and CEO of the California Community Foundation. And her group of misfits, as they like to call themselves, there was a group of 12 really dynamic Latino national, state, and local leaders, put together a nonprofit that was aimed at advancing Latino public policy to ensure that we had a high quality of life. So MALDEF and others did this work nationally. At the state level, no one was taking care of home. And so I came on to be their executive director and was really nurtured by them in terms of they showed me the ropes on everything it means to be a leader in our community and also run a business, which a nonprofit is, and to have impact. So I did that work for 10 years before moving on.
And in your educational background, you reference it was really your time at UCLA and the public policy studies. That's the path that led you to where you are now?
Yes. So public policy was a field that I knew nothing about growing up, but came to know of it at Berkeley. I got 110% in my couple of public policy classes that I took. So I said, hey, I'm pretty good at this stuff. And then was able to go and work with the San Diego Workforce Investment Board. I'm from San Diego, and so I was able to spend a couple years there. And I did a lot of their government relations work, and what I learned is I was way overwhelmed by the skill sets that I didn't possess in order to be highly effective in terms of a policy advocate. So I knew I needed to do some graduate work in the field to refine my skills and my abilities. So was able to go to UCLA, and at the time, this is where I say that hashtag blessed comes in, they had a new donor that was willing to scholarship two students that would study nonprofit management. And so UCLA Luskin School was starting a nonprofit management strand. And so I was the first recipient of that, and I was able to take a couple courses there at UCLA's public policy school. So it blended public policy and nonprofit management, which is what I do now, which is what I've done for the last 20 years.
That's great, and certainly I think for our audience of listeners, whether they're older or younger, but certainly for the younger ones, it's nice to hear these stories about how you came to where you are today, because that in turn should also inspire young people to say, I want to do that as well. So let's talk about the LA Promise Fund and the LA Promise community that you serve. Let's set the scene for our audience and tell us about the LA Promise community and who we're serving.
Sure. The LA Promise Fund actually has had multiple names over the years, but the first and early iteration of it came out of the first set of LA riots back in the 90s. And it was a coalition of entertainment executives that came together and reached out to the young people of South Los Angeles to mentor them so that they saw a path to college and careers in the entertainment industry. And so it's so remarkable that that remains our work today. And I say that both in a positive way and a wow, we haven't moved far enough from that moment in time 25 years ago, right? And so we have, over the years, I think the beauty of the LA Promise Fund is it continues to adjust to what is needed in the community. As you said in the beginning, our mission is to ensure the students are prepared for college, career, and life. We run a number of programs that are regional, but also a strong focus on South Los Angeles. We know that South Los Angeles community needs our resources and support most. And so the students that we serve, the families that we serve, are 100% students of color, predominantly Black, African American, and Latinx, at 30% Black, 70% Latin. They do experience poverty. 88% of the students that we serve are qualified for the free and reduced lunch program. And they have needs that go beyond what might just be a traditional student that we all think about. So 25% of our students are classified as special education, and 34% are learning English, which is usually reflective of a recent immigrant status, either for them or their families.
And what are some of the unique challenges or unique opportunities you face?
We love the community that we serve. We love the beauty that is South Los Angeles, the history, the richness of South Los Angeles, the diversity of South Los Angeles, whether it's the diversity within the African American community, the diversity within the Latino community. I love seeing how those two communities have merged over the decades. One of my favorite things that I saw recently was walking out of a school site. I saw a young, high school boy who was African American dating a Latin female, and they were having a conversation in Spanish. And I said, "Isn't that LA?" Right?
Interesting.
It is
That's
great, right?
Yeah, that's great.
So I think the opportunities is just the diversity and the fact that this community continues to have what I talked about at the beginning is a desire to fulfill that American dream, to work hard to get their shot. And I think that the challenge is ensuring that we're providing those opportunities to the kids in a robust enough way that every single student finds their interest and their passion that ignites a lifetime of education and career readiness so that they become productive members of our society. And I think that is our collective job, both from an education front and from an enrichment perspective. It's a network of public, private, and nonprofit resources that need to work together in a collective and seamless way to ensure we're providing the needed resources to the students and schools that we serve.
Sure. And earlier you referenced obviously your strong history with the nonprofit world and how these organizations are funded by donors and government contracts and corporations, et cetera. The New York Times had a piece just this morning talking about the impact of COVID-19 on nonprofits. So this is obviously a question that we're asking all of our guests to say, since COVID-19 is with us and is going to be with us for a while, how is that impacting your team and your work and your plans for moving the organization forward during this pandemic?
Sure. Thanks, Dwayne, for that question. I appreciate your concern about the nonprofit sector's well-being. I read that article this morning too, and when I did, I just said amen. So they were highlighting, I believe, a nonprofit in Chicago But that story is true for nonprofits and businesses, and government entities across the nation right now. But if I just take a minute to focus on the nonprofit sector, when the economy goes down, that means our proceeds go down with it because people don't have as much to give. Also, with the dual initiatives emerging over the dual needs emerging, I should say, over the last few months of COVID around health and well-being and all the infrastructure and systems that need to be set up, not just from a health perspective, but from an economic perspective or a housing perspective for the families that have been impacted, which is, all of America, all of the world.
Sure.
And then also with the social activism, so we see a lot of funds directed towards those two movements. And so what might have been available to us before, we hear we don't have the funds that we used to have, that we had last year, or we don't have the funds that we had planned for you. We've already redirected them. And so I think it requires a few things of us from a fiscal perspective. One, I say we as a nonprofit leadership team and my board in particular, had to really look deep into what we do on a regular basis, but also for this moment in time, we put in a 1-year strategic plan where we cut the budget by about 25%. And then said, what is it that we need to focus on in order to get through this next year? And then we'll pause, we'll reevaluate 1 year from now. But we can't do what we were doing 6 months ago. We have to really say what is most important in terms of the services that we're delivering. So from an education perspective, it's making certain that the quality of the education that we're delivering in a distance learning environment is going to be top-notch. The textbook that we all made certain we provided to every student has been replaced by a device and a Wi-Fi hotspot. So we appreciate all the corporations making free and reduced price Wi-Fi available to our families. That was something certainly of need because our families don't all have Wi-Fi. It wasn't enough, so not all families were able to benefit for many different reasons. Just to give you some color on that, for instance, if you live in South Los Angeles, there's many houses on the front that have multiple units in the back, some of them permitted, some of them not. So that front legally authorized home gets the Wi-Fi and the ones in the back don't, right? The other thing is if you don't have a social security number, many times you couldn't qualify to receive that service, right? So that impacts our undocumented families. And then the other thing that we saw is that most of those free programs were for a set period of time of 3 months. So, I really challenge those corporations to say, how do we extend this obligation to ensuring those most in need continue to receive an essential resource? It's an essential resource now.
Right.
It's like water in terms of Wi-Fi to stay connected and to stay productive. But in the meantime, we've been able to partner to get some Wi-Fi hotspots out to our families at a reduced rate. But it's a new cost for nonprofits, right? Which we didn't see before. And then retraining our teachers, reprogramming our curriculum, designing and engaging curriculum in a space that we all were uncertain of, right? Like we're all figuring out, how do I work best from home and on a device for 8 hours. And so we're having to figure that out for hundreds and thousands of students now to make certain that they stay engaged so that we don't see them slide behind academically. So that's the academic side. All programs have to move online. We don't want to say we're stopping the enrichment programs. That doesn't help our kids. It does make sense for many entities to say that because they just can't reach the kids. We're trying to keep as many of our programs active on an online basis. And so what does it mean to have art available online? What does it mean to have virtual internships? So our internship this summer was moved to an online program. We appreciate all those businesses that made the transition with us.
That's great.
Yeah. So we're rethinking everything we do.
So you've talked about the organization and the decisions your board made. How are the students doing? What are the systems that have been put in place to support the students during these difficult times? How are they coping from their perspective?
You almost have to ask every single kid that question, just because every single one of them is dealing with this differently. just as all of us adults and humans are. So we're always certain to ask that of the students, and we're really trying to stay connected with their social emotional well-being. I think it's definitely fragile in terms of their social emotional well-being. I think that if they were experiencing trauma in the home before, there is a greater likelihood that that trauma is continuing and intensified. And so we've made all of our social emotional counselors available to provide services online. I appreciate all of the other nonprofits that have hung out with us on this one. Wellnest in South Los Angeles, which is someone that you should get to know is from a Perspective Future podcast.
Okay, terrific.
Is doing that work with us, and all the professionals on our mental health side of the faculty are doing that as well. But it has been difficult early on, extremely difficult for kids. Hard for them to self-regulate in terms of what schedule they set for themselves, because the teenage body just wants to sleep if it doesn't
Sure.
have to be up at 8 in the morning.
And how many students are we talking about here that you're connecting with and staying in touch with and serving?
Sure.
What's the population?
Our charter schools right now are small. They're at about 350 school. This last year, we've had a partnership with the district working with 3 other LAUSD schools that have about 3,000 students at them. But I would say this is true of young people in general across Los Angeles. And it's especially concerning in terms of our families of color and our families that are living in poverty that might not have the structures within their home to help give those kids some guidance and some infrastructure in their own lives to move them forward through these difficult times.
As you carry out this work, can you share with our audience a number of your key program areas?
Sure. So I'll start off where I had mentioned the intern project. It's one of our favorite programs. It's also part of an initiative, it's called Slate Z, the South Los Angeles Area Transit Empowerment Zone. It's 70 different nonprofits that are all connected through a promise zone anchored at LA Trade Tech College. And our goal is to promote interdisciplinary solutions that break the cycle of poverty. And so our focus is to ensure that young people are moving through the education and university college program system seamlessly to access high growth industry career training, right? Because at the end of the day, it's making certain that they have a job that pays well, that is significantly supporting the LA economy and their own families and communities. And so I say that because one of the education group's goals is to make certain that all South LA young people have a job or an internship in the summer. And so we've been making progress with that every year. And each of us nonprofits collaborate, say, I can take, X number, I'll take 100, I'll take 50 over here, I'll take 500 for some of the bigger providers. And so our contribution to that is the intern project, which is in its 7th year, and it looks to place students in really high-profile companies in Los Angeles and give those students exposure to the companies that drive the LA economy and to potential industries, companies, and jobs that they should consider for themselves. It's fueled by research that shows that 94% of kids that have an internship will get a 4-year degree. That is giant. And we see that manifest itself every single summer. And following our kids, every single student that has participated in the internship program has gone on to college. And they're predominantly all young people of color. This year, we were aiming to have 100 kids in business internships. We've got the Rams, we have Churnin Entertainment, Bad Robot, Cedars has worked with us, Kaiser has worked with us, a number of different really influential companies. Unfortunately, with COVID, not all those companies could make that transition. I think everyone's trying to figure out how to keep their team employed
Sure.
and do it virtually. But we had about 50 stick with us. And then we're also providing to about another 100 youth different career exposure opportunities that we do through kind of one-time field trips on a virtual basis, resume writing, mock interviews, career days. Disney's sponsoring a career day with us.
Oh, that's terrific.
At the end of the month. So It's been really good for the youth to keep them engaged and active in a meaningful way. And we're so grateful to all the companies that are continuing to pay the students, which is really significant.
And all of this has moved digitally. These all virtual internships.
Yep. They get some Zoom interactions. They get a shadow their mentor at a workplace through some meetings, and then they're given projects to work on offline and then to deliver those final projects. We also have a great initiative that's sponsored by the California Community College Office of the President. And the goal there is to connect South Los Angeles high schools seamlessly with their local 2- and 4-year university. And so that's called our Career Pathway Connections program. So we're we're making certain those high school students have access to college courses if they want to take them, either concurrent or dual enrollment, as it's called, that they're supported to be successful, and that they're doing so with a career field in mind. So we have 4 different pathways that we're developing right now in health, business, construction, and digital media arts. That one is going to continue and has been active on a virtual basis. We did a great virtual career fair right as school was ending, so we appreciate everyone working with us on making that transaction. The Network for School Improvement is something that is sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And again, we're working with the 12 schools that are in the South Los Angeles Transit Empowerment Zone, Slate Z. And the goal there is to ensure that more Black and Latinx students are prepared for college by completing the college prep coursework known as A through G here in California with a C or better, so that they're competitive for entry into college. We have another initiative called Girls Build, which is one of my favorites, which empowers young girls really from across the nation, because it's grown over the last 7 years. So we had 65 teams of girls come together to become agents of change in their own community. They establish clubs on their campuses. They identify a challenge in their community, and then they advance change. We ask them to use tech solutions as part of their change, and then we help have volunteer professional mentors provide webinars and trainings for the girls that gets them informed on how to build a website, social media for social change, leadership development, campaign and movement building, a number of different skill sets than anything relevant to their particular solution. So for instance, this last year, we had a team of girls out of San Fernando develop a tracking device for safety that could be used within a family, so that girls, as they go out in the evening or anywhere at any time, can make certain that someone always knows their whereabouts.
I read about that. That's great.
Yeah, there's a group of girls last year that did a tech drive to close the loneliness gap at a senior center, and so they took in donations of different technology. They rehabbed the technology, and then they trained senior citizens how to use them so they could connect with people in their lives, loved ones, and parts of their past.
So these are great projects. I'm just curious to know, is there support to help these young women scale these into some commercial opportunities, perhaps?
A few of them have over the years. That is our next endeavor, though, is to get some investors behind them. We need some VC capitalists supporting these girls because they come up with some good stuff.
Well, this is great because this is going to segue to the next conversation I wanted to have, because in your opening you talked about the LA Promise Fund coming about because of folks in the entertainment sector taking interest. Yet I know a number of your programs and services really focus on technology, which is obviously the topic du jour. So I know STEM and underrepresentation of people of color in STEM careers is a big issue nationally and certainly here within our region. And I know this is something that you all take very seriously in your programs. Can you first of all share with how you all define the problem as it exists within STEM?
I think what we all need to be doing at this moment in time, part of what the social activism around Black Lives Matter means, is take a look at your own life, take a look at the places where you reside, and for many of us it's our places of work, and corporations, take a look at your own commitment to diversity. And I think that, especially here in Los Angeles, most companies have had a commitment to diversity. It hasn't necessarily materialized, though, in the diversity of their workforce. That is especially true in the STEM sectors, which is a high growth industry for the nation, for the world. We've seen what impact it's had in the in Northern California region, and we're starting to see that development here in Los Angeles through Silicon Beach. And yet we know that our numbers of Black and brown professionals aren't represented in that workforce. And so I'll give you an example. 32% of the national population is Black or Latinx, but only 8% of the tech workforce is African American or Latinx. So you've just got a big divide in terms of ensuring diversity in that industry of workers. And so our goal is to make certain that we are connecting young people of color to this pathway, and we're choosing to do it through a couple different initiatives. One, research shows that the ability of a young person to pursue a career is all about exposure, right? Exposure in that middle school and the high school. And then two, about the classes that one takes that reinforce that exposure in terms of initial skill development. So with that being said, we've got to expose our young people to this industry. So that's why you see so many of our programs are college and career oriented. When we call you up and ask you to please participate in a career day for elementary, middle, or high school students, your participation in that could change the life trajectory of a student that learns about a career that they knew nothing about, but gets them excited to start taking the steps to learn about. And so field trips to different corporations, mentorships, internships, jobs, career day exposure, all those things are what we need more of to ensure that students are aware of these careers. The second thing we need to do is, as educators, we need to infuse courses into the school day so that students are starting to learn from a technical perspective what it requires to advance in this field. So if they're seniors and they haven't taken the right math courses to become a computer science major, they're already way, 2-3 steps behind, maybe even too far behind to get a foothold into that career sector from a pathway perspective. So one, we've got to make certain that we have computer science courses, math courses, and then career technical education courses that let students develop and expose themselves to this industry on a hands-on basis.
Well, you spoke of some numbers nationally, and of course we know right here in our own backyard, Los Angeles County, particularly the largest county in America, where people of color represents the majority, yet the numbers are really low in the STEM areas, particularly at Silicon Beach, I would add. What do you think some of the barriers are that keep women and minority participation at such low levels right here in our own backyard?
Sure. It's more of the same. It's exposure and then the early pathway development for these young people. 57% of bachelor's degrees in all fields are awarded to women, right? Not bad. More than half, right? Only 11% go to women of color, right? And so we've got to make certain that from the earliest of years, elementary, middle, high school, that we're doing the exposure, that we're doing the STEM and tech camps and web design camps for kids. All of that stuff matters. That we're giving them the mentorships, the internships, the field trips, that they're pursuing these majors in college that, I probably should be in the STEM field. I got straight A's in math and science. I took AP calculus A, B, and BC in high school. But once I got to college, I didn't have anyone helping me when I started to stumble. So you have to have those supports for the kids in college too, to make sure that they stick with it. And then you have to have internships built into college so that there is a natural next step into the career space for them. And then, this is the corporate side, corporations need to make their cultures reflective of diversity as well as their actual numbers. So you have to, it's all everything that we're talking about right now. Your numbers have to be diverse and your culture has to be diverse to make it a place where everyone feels comfortable, welcome, and included.
Well, I know the mayor of Los Angeles announced perhaps a year or so ago a Pledge LA initiative, and that was a way to engage the VC and the tech community, primarily on the West Side, to support nonprofits, either through board service, internships, et cetera. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts in terms of the response and role of government in supporting these objectives?
Yeah, we love Pledge LA and appreciate Mayor Garcetti and the Annenberg Foundation stepping up to kick that off. Really important because I think a lot of times those corporations, they're working their tails off to get their companies to be successful and might not have the capacity to look up and say, how do I connect with community to do this type of endeavor, which is, create a pipeline. So if we can help create that for them to make it an easy entry point for them, an easy place for them to plug and play, then we're doing good. We were happy to work with the Annenberg Foundation, Annenberg Tech, and Pledge LA last year on an initiative, as well as with Mayor Garcetti, called Hello Future. And so Hello Future was a giant symposium that we put together last year with Mobile World Congress at the Convention Center. And we had 13,000 young people come over the course of 3 days to a total tech bonanza, right? It was a giant tech convention for young people, and it exposed them to those science, technology, engineering, and math fields. And we're so grateful to the 140 companies that showed up, many of them Pledge LA members, that made interactive displays available to kids so that they could start seeing what the technology was all about. They brought their team members there to talk about career pathways and what it takes to pursue this field of study and work. And then we asked any of them to bring their HR managers to invest in either internships or job opportunities if they had jobs. And we invited some 18 to 24-year-olds to join us for that portion of it. So that's what it's going to take. And again, there's such giant efforts. There's little things that we can do and big things we need to do. So we all need to work together to be able to lay forth these opportunities for the LA community.
We've spoken about the government and the work that you're doing as a nonprofit. Speak to the issue of public education and certainly the resource issues, because obviously the need for devices and the instruction. So can you speak to the issue as it relates to resources for the schools and how we can support that?
Oh, Dwayne, you could get me going for another 2 hours. Resource allocation and public education. We need more. And so, we probably need $20,000 a kid in order to be fully resourced. And, California, just depending on the given budget year, you're at $12,000 per student. High school gets more expensive. The higher up you have, higher up in the grade levels you go, because you have to offer more courses, required courses. So I'll talk about the courses first, and then I'll just talk about some of the technology. So one, we are going to need public and private partnerships because we don't have the public resources alone to get this work done in terms of ensuring that our students are adequately prepared for the 21st century in terms of the world of study and work. And so where companies can come in, Amazon and Microsoft help meet our digital needs by providing computers and licenses as COVID hit to ensure that all the students in our schools had a device. Verizon came in and worked with the district and us to provide the hotspots at a reduced rate. So we're going to need public-private partnerships to continue to ensure that Los Angeles's young people are prepared for the future, right? I think schools also have to get creative in how they create courses that both provide the English, math, social studies, science requirements that all students need to know, but also fusing that with hands-on learning, right? And I think that's the key that so many of us educators are working in. So for example, our charters are digital media arts themed academies, so that the students are taking either through their college course or through CTE dollars that you have to apply for and get separately, courses that on film, on sound, podcasts, web design, animation, digital media arts, to ensure that they get excited about what a future job could be for them, right? Because this is the key, Dwayne. igniting the fire in every single student so that they have the agency to find the opportunities that will take them to each of the next steps, right? And we don't need, I mean, I consider myself hashtag blessed and hashtag hard work, but there was no intentionality in my career path. We need to make certain that these kids are driving career paths, and the schools have to help with it. Our private sector needs to help, our public sector, but we've got when the kid gets that fire in them, that's when you know they're going to be okay, right?
In that vein, though, we talk about STEM and science, technology, engineering, and math, but here in Los Angeles and in this region, the creative economy is so huge and so important. And I know in some organizations, the focus is on STEAM, adding art to that. So can you speak to the creative economy and programs that you all have in this particular area?
Sure. And nowadays, arts and STEM are so close together, right? If you talk about what digital media arts is, and you talk about animation, it's both technical and creative, and that's why folks have integrated that A into the STEM and created STEAM, right, for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And so we do too, because we know that they're both important. But oftentimes students are compelled to pursue arts versus the technical side of it, or vice versa. And then later on, as they advance in their studies, they're able to fuse the two together. And so 1 in 6 jobs in Los Angeles are in the creative economy. Not surprising with all of the Hollywood and arts industry and museums that we have here, that we're blessed to have here in Los Angeles. And so we wanted to make certain that we were preparing students for the arts economy and the arts job, given it's a high growth industry here in Los Angeles. And so we have a program called Arts Matter, which is training teachers on how to infuse arts into their curriculum across the 4 main subject areas of English, math, social studies, and science, so that it's not just in an art class, which is what we've traditionally known that some students may or may not receive, but it's something that students can experience as they're learning English, and they're able to, well, I'll give you an example. We've been fortunate enough to work with Paramount Studios the last 3 years.
Oh, terrific.
And every year, usually in the spring, they have an animated film come out. This year, it was SpongeBob. And so they work with us months in advance, and their engineering team, their animators come out, and we develop a complementary curriculum to elementary and middle school teachers that advances engineering and animation standards in their subject areas. So we train the teachers in that. Then the teachers deliver that content with their students.
Wow.
And so this one's at 10 different schools. So we impact probably about 500 students with this one. And then students create their own animated flicks on related to SpongeBob that they can get really excited about. So this year they were creating the villain, both from an animation, and then they had to have their storyboard. They had to write out a script so that we're able to bring in the English aspect of what they're doing. And in years past, we've been able to get them out to the studio for a field trip and to watch the show. We didn't get to have that happen, but hopefully when this all ends, we can do that.
That's wonderful, and I'm just going to reference a recent episode that we had with Larry LeBeau from New Filmmakers LA, which focuses on elevating and celebrating diverse and emerging film talent. And we did talk about, how they go about supporting arts and filmmaking and access in our public schools. So I think there's going to be a connection there. I'm going to make sure that you connect with Larry and
that'd
see
be
how
amazing.
you guys can work together.
Absolutely.
How do you move forward? You're doing a lot of great work. We're all under a little bit of duress right now. What new initiatives are you looking to advance in a post-pandemic world? And what are you looking for from government, from foundations, from corporations, or others to move your work forward?
So in addition to moving everything to a virtual basis, we've had to meet basic needs of families. I'd say the biggest basic need was around food security. And so immediately after the pandemic hit, we started offering a food bank to our families. We had a small pilot. We were so grateful to our funders that supported that a year ago to see whether or not a food bank would be appropriate for a school site. So we had about 60 families participating in it. We now serve about 500 families a week at that food bank. And so the need was immediate. We conducted a survey of our families, and within 2 weeks of the pandemic hitting, 100% of the families that participate in the food bank had lost some income. 80% had lost all income. And so we know, this is where I talk about South LA, everything is more extreme in South Los Angeles in terms of any trends that we're seeing, right? And that's true for COVID, right? Because we know that Latino rates of COVID exposure and African American rates of COVID exposure are higher than the white and Asian rates. And so the same is true for the economic loss. And so we need to make certain that we're supporting families on that front. We've been able to work with some funders as well to provide micro grants. So during the course of COVID, we've administered over $200,000 in micro grants to family just to help stabilize them economically through our partnerships with great public schools now. And I think this is what I'm alluding to is just what the article this morning in the New York Times was saying is that nonprofits are that glue that just work really closely with families that are able to support their needs on an immediate basis. And we get calls from families constantly in need of something, and then our job is to hustle and figure out how we direct them or provide that right resource. So we're going to continue to need to provide basic services to our families. We also don't want to let go of our mission, right? Because we've got to keep these kids inspired to stay on track academically and college ready and career wise to continue to aspire it. Otherwise, we're going to have these generations of kids that have just lost their North Star, which is not acceptable. So we continue to need partnerships, both government and private and foundation partnerships. Everything is made possible through partnerships. We don't do anything on our own. And so if anything that I've said today in terms of partnering or volunteering as a corporation, as an individual, and as a government institution resonates, please do reach out to us. You can find us at www.lapromisefund.org. And then we continue to need donations. Nonprofits rely on donations in order to operate. And so you can also give at that same website, www.lapromisefund.org.
Well, that's terrific because, on our program, we always have an emphasis on collaboration and partnerships and what that means to you and what you're looking for as an organization. And certainly in our episode notes on the podcast platform, as well as our site, we make sure that your website is known to our audience. And if people do contact us after the show, we certainly forward them on to you. So that's always an exciting opportunity when somebody hears an episode and are inspired by something and gives us a ring, and then we forward that on. So that's truly joyful. Let's talk about success stories. A lot of good work, difficult times. We have to stay focused and move forward together. But you've been head of this organization now for close to a decade. Can you share some of the success stories that bring joy to you and bring joy to the organization and the team that you've assembled?
Sure. Working with students brings joy to us, and just seeing their progress, working with families and seeing their progress. And we are always so excited to see our students succeed in life. I could go on and on about the success stories, but there's a number that I think are recent because of the graduation season that just passed that I can share with you to inspire some of you. So Kenya, I'll just use their first name, is a student, a high-performing student from Manual Arts High School that we've known since middle school, grew up in South Los Angeles. And she is just a ball of energy. And like so many of our students, doesn't know what to do with all that energy or how to direct it. But every single time we were able to say, Kenya, why don't you consider doing this? And she's like, okay, miss, okay, miss, okay, miss. What do I do, miss, miss, miss? And so we get that application in front of her. She applies for it. She was able to be an intern in our intern project last year. She worked with the Rams. And as a result of it, she wants to pursue marketing and communication. She was part of the Rams street team squad that was able to engage and work with fans.
That's terrific.
She was part in I think when she was in 8th grade, was one of our girls build team members at John Muir Middle School. They won that year. I'm pretty certain that they won that year. That was her first college scholarship that set me in the direction of knowing that I need to go to college. And guess where Kenya's going?
Berkeley.
UCLA.
UCLA.
My second favorite school, right? So Kenya, and she's still a ball of energy, and we're excited to see her headed to UCLA and become a Bruin. Joseph is another one of the students that continues to inspire us. Joseph came to this country when he was 14 years old, as he was starting high school, from Africa, not knowing English. And Joseph, for the first couple years, was really isolated, mostly because of the language issue. He has a twin brother, too, and the two of them were pretty removed from the social scene on a campus. And then someone reached out to him to become involved in a club. This is where I tell you, got to get him involved in something. Just
Sure.
get him involved in something. And little by little, Joseph became one of our college ambassadors, which is a program where peers mentor peers to go to college. Joseph graduated a year ago and with a scholarship to go to Wesleyan. And he is studying the arts, and he is back here this summer, and he's looking for a job. So if any of your listeners you can reach out to us. I was just emailing him yesterday with a couple prospects for him to apply to. But he's just doing phenomenal
Terrific.
as well. There's so many. Jorge, here's an amazing story. Jorge warms the heart every time. His family in junior high experienced homelessness. They were living out of their car. Jorge reached out and asked for resources on financial literacy, and we were working at the time with Citi on providing financial literacy services to students and their families. He accessed those resources, helped to stabilize his family's finances, helped get his father involved in a trade skill school so that his father could enhance his skills and get into a job to stabilize the family. The family left South LA, had to move out to Palmdale for purposes of, it's a little bit more affordable out there. We see that trend a lot right now. Wanted to continue his education at Manual Arts High School, got on the train every single day, buses and trains, to get down to Manual Arts High School for his last year of high school. Straight A student, amazing student, did many of the programs that we've talked today, and will start his 3rd year at Harvard this year.
This is great. And, I did do a little bit of research, but I was particularly interested in a blog post that was written by one of your graduates, a young gentleman named Isaac. Can you tell us about Isaac?
Yeah, Isaac's amazing. He is a person that has received and now gives back in so many different ways. So Isaac has been involved in our college program. So we have a program where we work really closely with our students to ensure that they are doing everything they need to be doing to get on that college-ready path, everything from the SAT prep to field trips to their personal statements, application, financial aid, and the acceptance process. And he has built a really strong bond with one of our board members, Robin. And so the two of them have worked closely together. He was an intern in our intern program, graduated, went into college, and then came back and interned for us with the same program, and has mentored other young people and is one of our featured speakers every single year, telling his story and inspiring other young people just to take advantage of every opportunity that comes their way.
Well, I was inspired by the Isaac story in that he referenced how a Ms. Robin Kurtzman had identified him and pulled him, out of nowhere to say, here's an opportunity to be put in front of you, and he took the extra classes. And I was inspired by that because I saw that Isaac also moved on from LA to attend Dartmouth College, which is where I went to school. And for me, thinking back some years ago, it was Miss Doris Brunson at IS 88 in Harlem who said, you should do this. That led me to the ABC program, a Better Chance program, that led me on to secondary school and on to Dartmouth. So I was particularly taken by Isaac's story and let Isaac know that he's got a Dartmouth family that welcomes him and is here for him.
Oh, how terrific. I love that. I love that. And isn't that so true? It's each of us having the guidance of someone both pushing us and exposing us to different opportunities that can get us to the next level and to have ourselves be our best self, right?
So everyone needs their Robin Kurtzman. So hashtag Robin Kurtzman, and kudos to her for what she's done to support Isaac and many other students. That's terrific. Veronica, this has really been a great conversation, and for us, we just learned so much, and are so pleased to learn about the work that you're doing and the staff that you've assembled to do this work for the kids and for South Los Angeles. So we certainly want to have you back on the show at some point, at any point in time, and we certainly appreciate any recommendation you have for us, for others who are making lives better in South Los Angeles and for the youth of our community. Since this is a podcast about Los Angeles, we always like to sort of wind down with a lightning round. So we learned about your background, but when you're not working as often as you do, we like to get to know our guests and what do they do in their spare time in Los Angeles. So a few lightning round questions. Where are you from originally?
National City.
San Diego. Mm-hmm. Which community do you live in currently?
Burbank, California.
Mobility is a big issue in Los Angeles. Uber, Lyft, yellow cab, bus, bike, walk, metro, or scooter?
Bike and a Prius.
Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Hulu.
We have all those subscriptions at our house. I watch none. But the kids love them. The kids do love them, especially during COVID.
When you are able to go out and dine, favorite restaurant or two in Los Angeles, or a favorite restaurant or two in South Los Angeles?
Sonsonata Grill, because it's across the street from our charter schools, and it's where I conduct many a meeting, and you can get a great pupusa or la parrilla. Is really good. And then we are grab and go with the kiddos. So if we're going healthy, there's a place called Grain Labs. It keeps it pretty healthy, which I'm impressed my kids now eat from. Otherwise, I'm an El Pollo Loco girl. The kids know I love me some El Pollo Loco.
When you have visitors from San Diego visiting you here in Los Angeles, favorite spot to take them?
It's the beach. It's always the beach. We spend quite a bit of time at the beach. We are able to still go out to the beach. So every time we get a beach closure, my heart breaks a little bit. But we love the trails up in the hills behind us and the beach. And we love mountain biking as well.
Lakers or Clippers?
Oh, Clippers, my friend.
Rams or Chargers?
Oh, you're tearing me up on that one because I'm a San Diego girl. I love the Chargers, and I've come to love the Rams since they've come to town, and they are one of our biggest supporters. So I'm going to go with Rams unless the Chargers come up and give us some funding.
Dodgers, Angels?
Oh, Dodgers, yes.
Favorite park in Los Angeles?
This is a tough one. I spend a lot of time at parks, so I'm going to give you a few different lists. And for different reasons, right? So Griffith Park is where I meet my girls, meaning that the mom's club that still wants to do a walk or an exercise. I also like the Silver Lake Trail for a morning run around Silver Lake. My Cambridge Park is great with the kids, not far in Burbank. There's nothing special. It's just where we go, right, when we need a soccer game or a volleyball game. Also Chatsworth Park, love the hike over at Chatsworth Park.
That's terrific. Well, Veronica, this has been a great dialogue, and we really appreciate you and LA Promise Fund and your service to community. Hopefully we can have you on again to discuss the progress you're making. Thank you for joining us today. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this great program, and we hope you'll join us again next week as we look forward to another great conversation. Until we meet again, stay strong, get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com. And we hope you'll connect with us on social media, on Facebook at Civitas LA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA.